Yeah, this one was pretty hard, but I did that on purpose. This is an example of someone who thought the camera was out of focus and in trying to fix it actually made the camera out of focus. So you live and you learn. It was hard to find a reference again, but as soon as I saw this one, I thought maybe the snow would be interesting. You wouldn't really think that it would look very cool with charcoal. Not that you would think that it wouldn't look cool, but it's not a picture you look at and you're like, yeah, I think that would be cool. But I saw the snow and I was like, you know, that would be pretty cool. If I nailed that, it would be interesting. I don't know if you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, that's snow. Maybe with the snowflakes, but there are like 4 of them. This took like 3 days, not consecutively, but it took 3 sessions. Eventually I got to the point where I was like, okay, I have to finish this someday or else I'll never get on to the next thing. After the whole thing with not being able to get a good mid-tone with the toilet paper on my Valheim drawing, I did what I've seen others do, and I took the charcoal stick and did a light layer on the paper and then tried to blend it with the toilet paper, but it didn't work because I don't think I put enough charcoal on there. And so I went immediately back to my old method and tried to get a mid-tone by dipping the toilet paper in the charcoal powder, and it also didn't work. So this time around, getting a mid-tone was much harder than it was with my Valheim drawing, especially because the background I wanted to get in order to convey that the light was coming from behind the tiger. I had to get that right, and if it wasn't smooth, it was gonna look wonky. I mean, it's not perfect, but I got it to a point where I could make little highlights, but that took a while. I mean, there was the whole corner debacle I did. So the light is coming from the right, and I happened to put the darkest spot of the background on the top right section of the page. It'll buff out. It was perfectly parallel with the top and the right side of the paper. That really bugged me. Eventually I gave up on the toilet paper and I just went in with the blending stump and determined, okay, I'm gonna have patience. And I took the smallest tool and I went in and I just smoothed everything out that way. After I got sick of the background, I tried to get the placement of the tiger. And that was hard alone because I think I changed its position like twice. I wanted to establish certain features without making them too dark. A couple times I made the paw too dark. I think in the end I actually made it too light, but you know, it's fine. But I don't know why the tiger was particularly hard to get right. The face alone took like 2 sessions. The body took a while. I have not studied the anatomy of a tiger because it's an action shot, and I needed to make it look like it was running. I had to make it as close as I could get it to the reference so it didn't look weird, because I don't know how a tiger looks when it's running. I couldn't take any initiative there. That took me a while, especially because in doing the background, I overworked the paper a little bit. Either that or I didn't make the background dark enough. I do actually think that I did not make the background dark enough. Yeah, I didn't make it dark enough. Lesson learned. It was interesting because the white parts of the tiger's face is almost the exact same shade as the shadowy part of the snow. It was fun to think about the white parts of the tiger's face as not white and as gray. And that's one of the reasons I picked this, because it takes so much thinking. Like, the tiger is the focus, but the lighter parts of the tiger itself aren't the lightest parts of the whole picture. That was fun. One of the most difficult parts to get was the nose, and make it look like the tiger's face was turned like it was in the reference. The highlights around the face, because I had to make sure it was clear that the lighting was coming from behind the tiger. I didn't want to do all of the highlights around the ears because that would have been a little bit funky. Oh, and also there was one point I tried to get the foreground. I wasn't gonna actually do the foreground at all because if you look at the reference, it's like blurry, you can't even see it. But I was like, is there any way for me to make it look more like snow? And so I tried to do the foreground a little bit, and I was not happy. I regretted it instantly. I am a huge fan. I really like disappearing edges. That was one thing that I didn't really like about my old drawings. To me, it kind of looked a little bit flat, and I've always wanted to get how like everything fades into the background except for the focus of it, and yet you can kind of tell that there is something in the nonsense that, you know, you blur in the background. The last thing I did on the picture was the snowflakes. I wasn't actually gonna do those, but I thought it looks a little bit too smooth. I probably could have gone away with a few more snowflakes. It's fine. I also tried to get the darker snow, like the shadowed snowflakes on the left and right side of the tiger with the snow being kicked up. I tried to get those. Didn't work. I'm actually really satisfied with the result of it. I expected it to turn out okay, but I wasn't actually expecting it to turn out to be one of my favorites that I've done. It looks a little bit unpredictable. The white parts of the face are darker than you would expect the white parts of a tiger's face to be, and it looks unexpected. Like usually when you draw portraits, the highlights are always like on the nose or like on the brow bone. Where else? Like the top of the lip. That's predictable. It's not bad, but you expect it to be there. But with this, it was interesting because with the light coming behind it, it was a little bit unexpected. And I really liked that about it. As frustrated as I was in the middle of the drawing, I was surprised at the result. That doesn't always happen, but when it does, it's really nice. Anyway, I was probably just rambling on the whole time. I didn't know what to talk about with Valheim. At least there was a game to talk about, but with this one, it's just... Yeah, I drew a random tiger that I found on Google. But you know, it's fun because the time lapse is probably going to be like 7 minutes long, so...